In this lesson, we will learn the 12 basic principles of animation, made famous by the two Disney animators named Ollie Johnson and Frank Thomas in the book The Illusion of Life, Disney Animation. Frank and Ollie collected the learnings of the first Disney animators to create what some consider the Bible of animation. These 12 principles are the foundation of animation, and to give your animation life means mastering these. So let's start out by looking at arcs. Anything from a bouncing ball to the swinging of an arm. Almost all animation follow arcs. Arcs help your animation look smooth and natural. Now let's look at squash and stretch. Squash and stretch is the action of squashing and stretching your characters or objects as you're animating. This really helps giving your animation character. Does the ball squash as it hits the ground, or does it stay solid? And what does this tell you about the object? Next is anticipation. To make an action feel big and important, you need a pre-action to set your main action. Like in this example, you can see the ball squash down and gather energy before it shoots off into the air. Or you can imagine a baseball player swinging his bat back and gathering energy before he hits the ball. Now let's look at secondary action. Secondary action is an action that follows your main action to emphasize it. Like a character shyly fiddling with her hair as she talks to a cute guy. Or in this example, the leg is emphasizing the main movement, which is the angry button smashing. Staging. Staging is the act of presenting your subject to the viewer as clear as possible. The purpose of staging is making sure that the viewer is looking where they're supposed to look. You don't want your action to disappear in a myriad of other actions around it. This can be done by placing and posing your character clearly, or using light and shade to highlight your character. Straight ahead and pose to pose. Straight ahead animations means that we're drawing each frame after the other. This is great for when you're animating effects, or when you're animating characters that want to feel fluid and dynamic. Because of the nature of straight ahead animation, where you're not using much planning, you tend to get a very organic looking movement. Pose-to-pose animation means that we're planning our action with the main poses, and then we go back and add the drawings in between. Pose-to-pose animation is great when you're doing complex character acting, where the character has to hit certain specific key poses throughout the scene at certain times. And it's especially useful when we're doing fight scenes. But usually when we animate, we do a combination of straight ahead and pose-to-pose. We might add a few of our key poses and then organically draw the animation in between those to make sure that we're staying within our time frame, but we're still keeping our animation looking organic. Slow in and slow out, also known as easing. All actions need time to start and stop, to not feel stiff. And to convey this in our animation, we draw more pictures closer together to convey a slow movement. And as we space them apart, we get a faster movement. And in most cases here, it's important that we keep our drawings evenly spaced, or we'll get a very choppy movement. Timing. Timing is the amount of frames your action takes. And good timing is critical for good animation and to convey realistic animation. For example, a heavy bowling ball will settle a lot earlier than a tennis ball or a beach ball. And this timing is what makes it feel light or heavy. Exaggeration. Exaggeration is the act of pushing your actions beyond reality. And animation is a great medium to push these boundaries. Solid drawing. This means that you need to take into account that your 2D animation exists in a 3D space. When you draw, you always want to stay true to your subject volume in 3D space. Appeal. Appeal is the most subjective of these principles, and it can be thought of as the charisma of your action. Your animation has to be beautiful to the viewer's eyes, and there's many different ways we can do that. The most obvious being having great design. But all the other principles also come together to create appealing animation. Follow through and overlapping action. Follow through is an action that comes after your main action, like a flame trailing behind the match, or like the smoke in this case. Overlapping action is actions that tend to move slightly out of sync with the main action, like the head and hair being offset to the body in a walk cycle, or the hat bouncing up and down on a character's head. If you want to learn more about these principles, I definitely recommend reading the book The Illusion of Life. Okay, so that's it for this lesson on the principles of animation.